September 11th, 2020. Emma Palzia Ray here. I was touched today by many of the posts that I saw on Facebook from friends reflecting back on that day 19 years ago. And with all this ability to do things virtually these days, or not ability, I guess, but proliferation of it, I thought I would share what I wrote about my experience. I finally put it on paper about a year ago and record it. It's called 9/11 plus 10 Journey Home. I thought the terror of September 11th, 2001 would stay with me forever, like an opened wound that never heals. On the 10th anniversary, that would change. On September 10th, 2001, I left for my first business trip since the birth of my second son. I would be back home the next day, 36 hours later, in time for dinner. A quick, uneventful trip. That was the plan. The weather was beautiful when I left for Houston. I arrived at the conference center and checked into my room. I flopped on the bed. The peace and quiet, it was so foreign and luxurious. No toddler, no baby. After dinner, I prepared for my presentation in the morning and packed what I could so I would be ready to head to the airport immediately following our session. The next morning, we were 2/3 through our presentation when the conference organizers made an announcement. I thought they said that someone flew into an air traffic control tower somewhere. I didn't understand why everyone was so upset. They said that everyone should go back to their rooms until lunch when they would have an update. I went back to my room and I turned on the TV. There I saw the footage we've all seen hundreds of times now. The images that are burned into our memories. The planes flying into the towers and the towers falling. I called home and the office. Lines were busy. Finally, I got through. My husband was home with the kids. Everyone was okay, but all was chaos. Good thing you're not here. I called my family in Connecticut. Oh, thank God you're not in New York. Everyone kept saying how lucky I was to be away. They knew I was safe where I was, nothing to worry about since I wasn't in New York. At lunch, they announced that the conference was ending. All presenters should plan their trips home, and all attendees should report back to work immediately. You see, the people attending this conference all worked for the same company, a major oil company. They brought presenters to them to speak on best practices. And when the oil company employees left, what remained were 100 business people from Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C. And we weren't going anywhere soon. On Friday, a few people from the conference told me that they found a van heading to Washington, D.C., and there might be a seat left. I wanted that seat. So I told the ex-Marine who declared himself in charge that my in-laws live in D.C., I can get home from there, and I'm a great night driver. We were off. As the sun began to set, I took the wheel. We changed drivers again after dusk. 24 hours after we left Houston, I was dropped off at my sister-in-law's. She would take me to Union Station, and in Washington, D.C., I would get a train home. The drive through D.C. was surreal. We drove by the White House, our nation's capital. Cement barricades and Army and National Guard trucks were everywhere. And then the train station. It was silent despite the hordes of deserted travelers. The silence. I can never remember an Amtrak ever being quiet, and Here we all were, riding along in complete silence. We got to northern New Jersey. When you start to see water in the New York skyline, what's that? The New York skyline? I don't recognize it. What was all that smoke? Factories? Refineries? Oh, no. Now the silence was broken by gentle sobs throughout the car. I was disoriented, confused, lost. We entered the dark tunnel that goes under the river into Manhattan, and we arrived at the train platform. Everyone got off the train. Not the usual urban hustle and bustle, just silently moving forward, looking down like some weird group of refugees. Where was my New York? Where was my home? On the 10th anniversary, I decided not to go on the computer all day. I wanted to observe the day in my own quiet way. But on that Sunday night, before going to bed, I checked my email. There was an email from someone I didn't recognize, but the subject line intrigued me, so I opened it. There on the screen was a photo of my business card from the job I had in 2001. James and his wife had lived in Brooklyn. Ash and objects fell in their neighborhood, and on September 12th, people started venturing outside, wading through a foot deep of fallen ash and debris. James and his wife picked up a few things, including my business card, and it was one of the few items intact, he said. They kept it in a Ziploc baggie along with a few other artifacts, and every year on 9/11, they pulled it out and remembered. At first, they were afraid to look me up, afraid of what they might find. But as years passed and the internet became more sophisticated, they decided to find out what happened to me. They were relieved to see me all over the place and very much alive and active. But they didn't want to reach out to me out of the blue, so they decided to wait a few years until the 10th anniversary. It was profound to be on the receiving end of this act, to find a 10-year-old connection to people I hadn't even known. I still don't know them today. They gave me a gift. They gave me healing. They gave me some closure. They confirmed for me that I was there. I was there that day. I may have been in Texas, but I was in that building too. My card, perhaps a letter and more, on someone's desk or in someone's filing cabinet or maybe in someone's thoughts. I was there. Both James' family and mine had made the difficult choice to leave the city in the years following that day. And we had something else in common, we found. We shared having new neighbors saying things like, "Did you lose someone?" "No, so it didn't really affect you." It was hard to explain. No one could understand unless they lived there what those days and months afterwards were like. Seeing the smoke from the still burning fire months later, hearing sirens and seeing bomb squad trucks race by every day, security stops, the new normal, the feeling of being amputated. Two limbs of the city, the ones that kept the city from running out into the water, were cut off. The presence that was always in our sight, it was gone. So when people said, "Oh, but you weren't there," or "You weren't really affected," it didn't sit well. It wasn't all about losing someone you knew. It was about losing the world as you knew it. It was about losing your home. The business card that fell in the ash in a neighborhood in Brooklyn, it was me. Falling, falling, landing. And 10 years later, realizing that I survived. Thank you.